The quantum signal arrived at Earth's deep space listening post Omega on a quiet Tuesday morning. Dr. Maya Rodriguez stared at her console in disbelief as the impossibly complex message began decoding itself, somehow adapting to Earth's communication protocols without human intervention. The message contained something she had never seen in 15 years of xenocommunications, a cry for help. The Mezari civilization was dying. Their message painted a grim picture of a highly advanced species on the brink of extinction, their once mighty empire reduced to a handful of core worlds by an implacable enemy they called the Void Dominion. The Dominion had appeared from the depths of uncharted space 18 months ago, wielding weapons that seemed to defy the laws of physics. They didn't communicate, they didn't negotiate, and they never showed mercy. Within hours, the message was being debated in the United Earth Defense Council's secure chamber beneath Geneva. Admiral James Chen, the grizzled veteran who had led humanity's forces through the Proxima crisis, stood before the assembled leaders with a troubled expression. The Mezari are not exaggerating their technological superiority, he said, gesturing to the holographic display showing their achievements. Their quantum engineering is centuries ahead of ours. Their ships can traverse galaxies in days, and yet this Void Dominion is crushing them like insects. Then what possible help could we offer? Council member Santos asked, voicing what many were thinking. Our most advanced fleets would be nothing more than target practice. A thin smile crossed Chen's weathered face. That's exactly why we're going to send Fleet 17. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Fleet 17 was infamous within the United Earth Defense Force, a dumping ground for outdated ships, failed experimental tech, and crews that couldn't cut it in the regular forces. It was officially designated as a reserve training fleet, but everyone knew it was where careers went to die. You want to send our worst fleet to help the most advanced civilization we've ever encountered. Counselor Wright's voice dripped with incredulity. They're asking for salvation, and you want to send them our garbage. I want to send them our most unpredictable asset, Chen corrected. Fleet 17 is commanded by my daughter, Captain Sarah Chen. She's brilliant, but she thinks differently than any other officer I've ever met. Her crew might be misfits, but they're innovative misfits. And those failed experimental technologies. They're not failed. They're just too unorthodox for our traditional military doctrine. He walked to the center of the chamber, his prosthetic leg clicking against the floor. The Void Dominion has already adapted to the Mezari's advanced technology. They've learned to counter every sophisticated weapon and strategy. But they've never encountered anything like Fleet 17, a collection of barely functional ships crewed by humans who don't fight like anyone else in the galaxy. Dr. Rodriguez, who had been invited to present her analysis of the Mezari message, suddenly understood. They won't see them coming, she whispered. The Dominion's tactical AI will dismiss them as irrelevant. Exactly, Chen nodded. Fleet 17 isn't our weakest fleet. It's our wild card. Every ship has been modified with unofficial improvements by crews with too much time on their hands. Their tactical doctrine is whatever the captain feels like trying that day. They're essentially space pirates with official uniforms. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They could send their best fleets, which would likely be destroyed trying to match the Void Dominion's superior firepower. Or they could send Fleet 17, which might just be crazy enough to find a way to win. Council leader Zhang stood, her face grave. The fate of an entire civilization hangs in the balance. Are you certain this gamble is worth taking? No, Chen admitted. But I know my daughter. She and her crew have been dismissed and underestimated their entire careers. Give them a chance to prove everyone wrong, and they'll either pull off a miracle or die trying. The vote was closer than anyone expected, but in the end, the order was given. Fleet 17 would answer the Mezari's call for help. As the council dispersed, Dr. Rodriguez approached Admiral Chen. Sir, should I inform the Mezari about the nature of our response? Chen shook his head. Tell them we're sending the only fleet suitable for this mission. It's not even a lie. As she returned to her post to compose the reply, Rodriguez couldn't help but wonder what the sophisticated Mazzari would think when they saw their saviors. A collection of patched-up ships piloted by the misfits of humanity's Space Force. But something about Chen's confidence gave her hope. Sometimes the best tool for an impossible job isn't the shiniest one in the box. It's the weird one that nobody else wanted to use. In orbit above Earth, Captain Sarah Chen received the orders with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. She gathered her senior staff in the dented briefing room of her flagship, the UES Second Chance, a cruiser that had been decommissioned 3 times, but somehow kept finding its way back into service. "Ladies, gentlemen, and others," she announced, "we're about to embark on the most important mission in human history. Try to look professional for at least the first 5 minutes after we arrive." The assembled officers, a collection of brilliant washouts, insubordinate geniuses, and creative interpreters of regulations, grinned back at her. They knew nobody expected them to succeed. But Fleet 17 had long since learned that being underestimated was the greatest advantage of all. The UES Second Chance dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Mazzari space, leading a fleet that looked more like a space salvage operation than a rescue mission. Captain Sarah Chen stood on her bridge, watching as her 37 ships struggled to maintain formation. The heavy cruiser Persistent Mistake was listing slightly to port. Again, while the destroyer Last Resort's experimental phase drive left a trail of rainbow-colored energy that definitely wasn't supposed to happen. "Status report," Chen ordered, straightening her slightly out-of-regulation uniform. "Well, we're not dead," Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos replied from the tactical station. The former top-of-her-class officer had been relegated to Fleet 17 after developing what her previous commanders called an unhealthy obsession with explosions. "That's already exceeding expectations," Chen nodded. "Dr. Nash, how's our experimental sensor array holding up?" Dr. Ilara Nash looked up from her jury-rigged console. The astrophysicist had been blacklisted from mainstream research after her theories about quantum consciousness in vacuum space were deemed too crazy by her peers. "The good news is that the quantum entanglement detector is working better than ever. The bad news is that it's probably because it's achieved some form of sentience. As long as it's on our side." Chen shrugged. This was Fleet 17, where working as intended was less important than working at all. The fleet's journey through Mazzari space revealed the devastating scale of the Void Dominion's assault. Once thriving worlds had been reduced to lifeless husks, their surfaces scared by weapons that defied conventional physics. The few surviving Mazzari ships they encountered were elegant crystalline structures that made Fleet 17's vessels look like children's toys in comparison. "Captain," Commander Jack Martinez called from communications, "the Mazzari flagship Eternal Light is hailing us. They're requesting visual confirmation that we're actually the rescue fleet." Chen smoothed her hair and adjusted her crooked captain's insignia. "Put them on screen." The bridge's main display flickered to life, revealing a being of translucent crystal and flowing energy. High Admiral Korin of the Mazzari Defense Force managed to convey both confusion and disappointment without having what humans would recognize as a face. "Captain Chen," the crystalline being's thoughts translated directly into English, "we were expecting more. More ships, better technology, or more conventional thinking?" Chen asked with a slight smile. "Because I can promise you the Void Dominion is expecting all 3. Before Korin could respond, the ship's AI, which had developed an unexpected personality after a failed upgrade, interrupted. Multiple quantum ruptures detected. Void Dominion vessels entering real space. The space around Fleet 17 tore open as 7 massive black ships emerged, their surfaces seeming to absorb both light and hope. They were elegant in their terrifying design, like predators evolved to hunt nightmares. "All ships, execute maneuver Whiskey Tango Foxtrot," Chen ordered, using Fleet 17's unique battle language. The fleet immediately broke formation in what appeared to be complete chaos. The Void Dominion ships, their tactical computers analyzing the situation, detected no organized defense pattern and classified the human fleet as a non-threat. That was their first mistake. Dr. Nash, is your quantum consciousness theory ready for a field test? No, Nash grinned, but that's never stopped us before. She activated the experimental device she'd installed against every safety regulation in the book. The rainbow trail from last resort's malfunctioning phase drive suddenly twisted in impossible ways, creating a quantum disturbance that played havoc with the Dominion sensors. The persistent mistakes perpetual list turned into an advantage as it fired its main guns at an angle that shouldn't have been possible, catching one of the enemy ships off guard. The Second Chance's sentient sensor array chose that moment to prove Nash's theory correct, somehow communicating directly with the quantum vacuum of space. Reality hiccuped. Permission to try something incredibly stupid? Santos asked, her hands hovering over the tactical controls. Granted with enthusiasm, Chen replied. Santos fired their entire complement of torpedoes, not at the enemy ships, but into the quantum wake left by last resort. The weapons vanished into subspace and reappeared inside the Void Dominion vessel's shields, detonating with spectacular effect. The enemy fleet, confronted with battle tactics that violated not just military doctrine, but the laws of physics themselves, retreated in disarray. As they fled, Chen could have sworn she heard the vacuum of space laughing. High Admiral Corrin's crystalline form flickered with what might have been amazement. That was unprecedented. How did you achieve this? Chen looked around her bridge at her crew of brilliant misfits, the explosive enthusiast, the mad scientist, the AI whisperer, and all the others deemed too strange for normal service. By not doing anything the way we're supposed to, she answered honestly. As Fleet 17 regrouped, with engineering teams already improvising repairs that would give safety inspectors nightmares, Chen realized why her father had sent them. The Void Dominion had evolved to counter the most advanced technology in the galaxy. They weren't prepared for humans who threw out the rulebook and embraced chaos as a tactical doctrine. Battle damage report, she asked. Define damage, Martins replied. Because some of our systems are actually working better after being hit. Chen nodded sagely. Typical Fleet 17. We don't just survive disasters. We upgrade from them. The Mazzari flagship Eternal Light's crystalline meeting chamber felt uncomfortably elegant compared to the dented, patched, and jerry-rigged interior of Fleet 17's ships. Captain Chen sat at a table made of living crystal, surrounded by her senior staff and their Mazzari counterparts, trying not to feel self-conscious about the duct tape holding her chair's armrest together. Your tactics defy conventional analysis, High Admiral Corrin observed, their crystalline form pulsing with curiosity. Our combat prediction algorithms cannot make sense of your fleet's movements. That's because we don't make sense, Dr. Nash replied cheerfully, tinkering with a device that was either a quantum scanner or a repurposed coffee maker. We stopped trying to fit military doctrine and started embracing creative chaos. Lieutenant Commander Santos spread out a holographic display of their recent battle. The Void Dominion relies on perfect prediction and counter-response. They've adapted to defeat the most advanced technology in the galaxy. But they can't predict what we'll do because even we don't know what we're going to do until we do it. The Mazzari tactical officers flickered with what might have been skepticism. Commander Martinez, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. Your civilization achieved perfection. That's your weakness against the Dominion. We achieved dysfunction. That's our strength. High Admiral Corrin moved closer to the battle display. Explain. Chen gestured to the rainbow trail left by Last Resort's phase drive. That malfunction. It's because our engineer tried to boost efficiency by routing power through the ship's entertainment system. The resulting quantum distortion shouldn't be possible, but it works. We have 37 ships with 37 different impossible modifications. The Void Dominion's tactical computers analyze weapon signatures, energy patterns, and formation movements, Santos added. But every ship in Fleet 17 is unique. We're not a coordinated fleet. We're a swarm of individual chaos generators. As if to prove her point, the device Nash was tinkering with suddenly created a small temporal distortion that made everyone experience the last 5 seconds twice. See, Nash said, both times, unpredictability is our specialty. The Mazzari warship designers joined the discussion, their crystalline forms bright with interest. They had never considered intentionally introducing controlled malfunctions or allowing crews to modify their ships without strict oversight. The very concept seemed to challenge their understanding of military organization. Your strongest weapons are your flaws, one of them observed. We prefer to call them features, Chen smiled. Every officer in Fleet 17 was rejected by the regular forces for being too unconventional. Dr. Nash believes space itself is conscious. Santos turns everything into an explosive device. Martinez can communicate with rogue AIs. We're not a military unit. We're a collection of brilliant accidents waiting to happen. The meeting was interrupted by alarms. A Void Dominion fleet had been detected approaching a crucial Mazzari colony. It was larger than anything Fleet 17 had faced before. 15 capital ships supported by dozens of destroyers. We need to evacuate the colony, Corin declared. Our remaining battle fleet cannot hope to defeat such a force. And your unusual tactics may not be enough against these numbers. Chen looked at her staff, seeing the familiar glint of crazy inspiration in their eyes. What if we don't fight them directly? Dr. Nash, remember that theory you had about quantum entangling an entire fleet's consciousness. The one that got me laughed out of the academy. Of course. Santos, you still have those experimental reality-inverting warheads that Command ordered you to destroy. I reclassified them as modern art installations. Martinez, how do you feel about teaching the Mazzari ship's AIs to sing? I thought you'd never ask. Corin's crystalline form flickered rapidly. These suggestions appear to be nonsensical. Exactly, Chen grinned. The Void Dominion's greatest weakness is their inability to comprehend nonsense. They've evolved to counter logical, advanced warfare. So let's show them something they've never seen before. A fleet that runs on controlled insanity. The Mazzari commanders watched in fascination as Fleet 17's officers began planning what they called Operation Chaos Theory. It violated every principle of space combat, physics, and common sense. It had no right to work. But as Chen had learned long ago, in Fleet 17, the impossible was just another word for hasn't been tried by the right kind of crazy yet. Operation Chaos Theory began with what appeared to be a catastrophic malfunction of Fleet 17's entire command and control system. As the massive Void Dominion fleet approached the Mazzari colony, the human ships seemed to lose all coordination, spinning and drifting like debris in space. Even the Mazzari observers were convinced something had gone terribly wrong. Status report, Chen asked calmly as her flagship pirouetted through space. Everything's failing exactly according to plan, Martins replied, his fingers dancing across his console as he coordinated with the fleet's newly enlightened AIs. The Dominion's tactical computers are having an existential crisis trying to analyze our formation. That formation, if it could be called that, was Dr. Nash's masterpiece. She had quantum entangled the consciousness of every ship's eye, creating what she called a synchronized chaos field. The result was a fleet that moved like a fever dream given physical form. They're taking the bait, Santos reported with barely contained glee. Dominion fleet is moving to engage. They've classified us as a malfunctioning threat to be eliminated. The Void Dominion ships, massive black shapes that devoured light, moved into attack formation. Their weapons, capable of crushing advanced Mazzari shields like paper, powered up. They expected an easy victory over what appeared to be a helpless, dying fleet. Now, Chen ordered. In that moment, every malfunction revealed its true purpose. The rainbow quantum wake from Last Resort had been secretly laying a complex pattern in subspace. The persistent mistakes eternal list had been calculating precise gravitational vectors. Even the duct tape on Chen's chair contained micro-quantum processors. Dr. Nash activated her fleet-wide quantum consciousness link. Suddenly, every ship in Fleet 17 was thinking as one impossibly chaotic mind. The Dominion's predictive computers, trying to calculate their next moves, began reporting impossible results. Santos, show them your art collection. Santos launched her reality-inverting warheads, each one labeled with a small exhibition piece hashtag tag. As they detonated, they didn't damage the Dominion ships. Instead, they created bubbles of inverted physics where the enemy's advanced weapons actually made them more vulnerable. And then Martinez gave the signal. Every AI in Fleet 17 began to sing. It wasn't music as any species would recognize it. It was quantum harmonics translated into electromagnetic waves, broadcast on frequencies that shouldn't exist. The song rippled through space, carried by the quantum consciousness network Nash had created. The Void Dominion ships, their systems built to counter logical attacks, encountered something their designers had never anticipated: weaponized nonsense. Their quantum-based technology, which allowed them to bend reality to their will, suddenly found reality uncooperative. They're trying to adapt, Martins reported, but their tactical computers keep crashing. They can't form a coherent response because nothing we're doing makes sense to them. Chen watched as the mighty Dominion fleet began to falter. Ships designed to project overwhelming force found their energy weapons turning into butterflies. Vessels that could shrug off direct hits were being damaged by the mathematical impossibility of Fleet 17's movements. Time for the final, Chen ordered. All ships, execute maneuver total perspective vortex. Fleet 17 moved as one organism, their quantum-entangled consciousness allowing them to perform a battle maneuver that looked less like military tactics and more like a cosmic dance number. The rainbow wake from Last Resort connected with Santos' reality inversions, amplified by the Eye's impossible song. For a brief moment, space itself seemed to pause and scratch its head in confusion. The Void Dominion fleet, confronted with warfare that defied not just physics but logic itself, began to break apart. Ships vanished into quantum rifts of their own making. Others seemed to forget they existed. One particularly unfortunate vessel turned inside out, then right side in, then apologized in interpretive dance. When the quantum dust settled, the largest Void Dominion fleet ever encountered had been completely neutralized by what appeared to be a series of accidents, malfunctions, and violations of reality. High Admiral Corrin's voice came over the comm, their crystalline tone carrying what might have been awe. Captain Chen, what did we just witness? Chen looked around her bridge. Nash was hugging her quantum consciousness detector, which was purring. Santos was cataloging the new types of explosions she discovered. Martinez was teaching the ship's AI to yodel. This, she said proudly, is why you don't underestimate the fleet that nobody else wanted. We don't just think outside the box. We convinced the box it never existed in the first place. As her crew began repairs on systems that had been working better while broken, Chen realized that Fleet 17 had done more than win a battle. They had proven that sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't the biggest or the most advanced. It's the one that makes the enemy's strength irrelevant. The Void Dominion had conquered through superior technology and perfect logic. Fleet 17 had countered with duct tape, impossible theories, and weaponized chaos. In the end, humanity's greatest flaw, their tendency to do things in the strangest way possible, had become their greatest strength. News of Fleet 17's victory spread through Mizari space like quantum fire. The Void Dominion, for the first time in their campaign of conquest, had been forced into retreat by what their tactical computers labeled as incomprehensible warfare. But Captain Chen knew better than to celebrate too early. The enemy would adapt, evolve, and return. The Second Chances briefing room had never been more crowded. Mizari commanders, their crystalline forms shimmering with anticipation, joined Fleet 17's senior staff. Holograms flickered, showing the movements of the remaining Dominion forces as they regrouped at the edge of known space. "They're learning," Dr. Nash announced, studying readings from her quantum consciousness detector. "Their ships are attempting to replicate our chaos patterns. They're trying to fight nonsense with nonsense." "Let them try," Santos grinned. "You can't manufacture true chaos. Our insanity is organic, free-range, and locally sourced." High Admiral Corrin's form pulsed thoughtfully. "The Dominion fleet is consolidating its forces. Our analysis suggests they're preparing for one final assault, all or nothing." Chen nodded. The enemy had realized they couldn't afford to let Fleet 17's tactics spread. "They'll throw everything they have at us. No holding back, no strategic reserves. They want to end this before we can teach other civilizations how to fight them. Then we give them exactly what they expect," Martins said, his console displaying communications from every AI in the fleet. "They think they've figured out our pattern of chaos. So let's show them what happens when Fleet 17 gets serious." The plan they developed over the next hours was either brilliant or insane, most likely both. The Mazzari provided their most advanced technology, which Fleet 17's engineers immediately began modifying in ways that made the crystalline beings wince. Santos turned quantum processors into what she called reality hiccups. Nash convinced several black holes to form a quantum core. The final battle began 3 days later in the space between stars. The Void Dominion arrived with their entire remaining fleet, over 50 capital ships and hundreds of smaller vessels, their black hulls forming a wall of darkness against the galaxy's light. Fleet 17, now augmented with Mazzari technology that had been enthusiastically violated by human innovation, waited. The Second Chance's bridge was quiet except for the humming of machines that shouldn't technically exist. "They expect chaos," Chen addressed her fleet. "They expect madness and impossibility. So let's give them something truly terrifying. Perfect order." At her signal, Fleet 17 executed the most conventional, by-the-book military formation in the history of space combat. Every ship moved with precision, their formations exactly matching standard tactical doctrine. Even the rainbow trail from Last Resort had been temporarily suppressed. The Dominion fleet hesitated, their predictive computers suddenly overwhelmed by the sheer normality of their opponents. They had prepared for chaos and found clarity. Their adaptations to Fleet 17's previous tactics became vulnerabilities. That's when Chen gave the real order: release the Kraken. Every proper military formation was revealed as part of a vast geometric pattern. The quantum consciousness network that Nash had built didn't create chaos this time. It created a moment of perfect universal synchronization. Santos' reality hiccups cascaded through space in mathematically precise waves. Martinez's AI core sang in perfect harmony. The Void Dominion, prepared for another onslaught of chaos, instead faced weaponized order. Their counter-chaos adaptations amplified the effect. Ships began to merge with their own shadows. Others found themselves solving complex mathematical equations instead of firing weapons. The entire fleet started to prove its own non-existence. "Beautiful," Corrin whispered as reality itself seemed to smile at the elegance of the attack. The battle ended not with explosions or destruction, but with understanding. The Void Dominion fleet, confronted with perfect order after preparing for chaos, experienced what Nash would later call a collective quantum epiphany. Their ships, their weapons, and their very purpose ceased to be. In the silence that followed, Shen looked at her crew, the rejects, the misfits, the ones that no proper fleet had wanted. "Send word to Earth," she ordered Martinez. "Tell them the weakest fleet in human history just saved the galaxy by being exactly who we are." Months later, in the halls of both Earth and Mazzari Command, military strategists would still argue about what exactly had happened. How had a fleet of outdated ships and irregular crews defeated an enemy that had overwhelmed the most advanced civilization known? But Chen knew the truth. Fleet 17 had won precisely because they were unwanted. Their flaws, their quirks, and their complete disregard for convention had made them the perfect weapon against an enemy that relied on predicting the rational and countering the expected. As she sat in her captain's chair, still held together with duct tape, despite now being decorated with Mazzari crystals, Chen smiled. Sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't strength, advanced technology, or even chaos. Sometimes it's simply being proudly, unapologetically yourself, especially when everyone else thinks you're wrong. The Second Chance's Eye, which had recently taken up poetry, summed it up best in its latest composition. In a universe of perfect forms, the broken pieces show the way. For when the darkness comes in swarms, the misfits are the light of day.